international affairs commentator Doug Herbert is joining me here on set. Doug, listening to a lot of what was said yesterday at that hearing and by people outside of it as well, a lot of people saying Trump's in complete denial here.
Yeah, but just going back to that soundbite we just heard, it's amazing. Liz Cheney is one of the so-called defiant Republicans. You could argue she is one of the few sane, rational, sober-minded Republicans left out there who is actually confronting the reality. The reality being, in the face of overwhelming evidence, the election was not rigged and it was not stolen from Donald Trump. What's remarkable, Stuart, is that 17 months later, after the election, you still have not just Donald Trump, but a large cohort within the Republican Party and the congressional Republican Party still hardwired at the hip, if you will, to this bogus claim that somehow the election was fraudulent. Trump himself, what we've heard in this testimony, was told time and again by his family members, by his own close advisors, his former campaign manager, that there were no credible claims of fraud. In other words, you lost, Mr. President. There is no way of really countering that. He absolutely ignored that and went on to make his big lie claim, a claim that the committee says ultimately inspired and incited that mob to riot. What you essentially have is Trump lashing out now. He has reacted, Stuart, with a 12-page, what only can be described as a rambling diatribe in which he accuses the Democratic Party of basically trying to bring him down. Why? Because they are desperate. They are right now at the helm, the leadership of a failing nation, a nation failing in every respect, and they are trying to use this committee to distract from other issues. The truth is that Donald Trump sees that he's up against it. He's watching these hearings. He sees the evidence against him. He sees his own inner circle refuting everything that he has said about the big lie. And he is trying right now to sow a lot of confusion and to continue, if you will, to double down, to hunker down in his claims about the big lie. He has a potential presidential run looking more and more likely, if you will, by the day in 2024. If he wants to run, there is nothing stopping him from being the presumptive Republican nominee. This committee is the only thing potentially standing in his way. Donald Trump doesn't really see it as a big obstacle, but he's going to make sure that it doesn't become one.
Doug, looking at the pictures we saw just a moment ago of this hearing, it looks a bit like a court, doesn't it? But it's not a court, crucially. Could there actually be any prosecutions as a result of what we're hearing at the moment?
There absolutely can. And the form in which those prosecutions would take place, Stuart, is the Department of Justice, headed up by Merrick Garland. Now, here's the deal. The committee, the House committee, are the ones that have had taken 1,000 depositions, hundreds of hours of hearings, painstakingly gathered evidence. From their perspective, the Justice Department, some of them are sort of scratching their beards and saying, why are they moving so slowly? The people in justice, the ones who actually have the power to prosecute. Now, the reality is that the Justice Department, to be fair, has charged over 800 people with regards to the Capitol riot. And there are signs that it may actually be expanding its inquiry beyond merely the events of January 6th and that attack on the Capitol and the insurrection to what happened before and afterwards. All of the events surrounding the big lie, the bogus claims that the election was stolen. Last month, significantly, the Department of Justice asked the House committee to hand over the transcripts of all the interviews it had conducted over many months. And the House sort of, balked at that, saying, we've done all the work. The Department of Justice has far greater resources than we do. Why should we just hand over all of our work? Yes, the House wants to see this prosecuted, but they don't want to do all the work for the Department of Justice. They think the Justice Department should get a lot more serious and a lot faster because there's a great threat, as they see it, facing the country, as is coming out in these hearings. The Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, the head of it, says he is watching these hearings, but he has not indicated exactly when and how he is going to act and whether he is going to actually launch a criminal prosecution based on the evidence emerging day after day from these House hearings.
Doug, thanks very much. Doug Herbert, international affairs commentator here on France 24. Thanks.